All this monster does is think about himself. He is nothing but a selfish, self-centered, narcissistic piece of trash that should live with his life in the 8x8 cell.
A grieving family finally gets their day in court to confront the man convicted of killing his girlfriend, the mother of his child, leaving him with nothing to say before he heads to prison for decades.
Is it your decision to not present a statement to the court?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right.
But there's still a mystery in this case as the couple's little girl remains missing. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. It's been 5 years since Christine Holloway was murdered in the home that she shared with Jose Morales, her boyfriend. 5 long years of her family waiting for answers and some semblance of justice. Christine's murder was gruesome. Prosecutors in Connecticut say her boyfriend, Morales, hit Christine in the head no less than 8 times, causing skull fractures, which led to her death. And then he left her body in the bathtub. Since Christine's murder, the 14-month-old daughter that she shared with Jose Morales has been missing. 3 months ago, Law&Crime covered the trial gavel to gavel, where a jury of 12 men and women found Morales, who's now 48, guilty of murder, tampering with physical evidence, and 2 counts of criminal possession of a firearm in Christine Holloway's death. Now, before we jump into the sentencing, let's listen to Assistant State Attorney Howard Stein as he recalls the crime in court.
The crime was brutal. This crime was a case of domestic violence at its worst. At least 8 separate and distinct blows to her head with an instrument that left distinct 1-inch circular bruises and indentations and fractures in the skull of Christine Holloway. Fractures so severe that a lobe of Christine Holloway's brain was completely avulsed from her head through the gaping hole in the side of her skull. Fractures so severe that a forensic anthropologist was unable to completely rebuild the skull during the post-mortem examination. Numerous other traumatic injuries and fractures to her face, chest, and back. Only 2 things could possibly make this fact pattern worse. First, over the next 36 or so hours, the defendant began a methodical and calculated cleanup of this unimaginable scene. By his own remorseless words, he described covering her head with a cloth so he would not have to look at her each time he stepped over her, not to summon help, but to go out and buy cigarettes or a blunt, or to go on his run to the education bins, or the various other drives he took over those nearly 36 hours. He coldly described soaking up Christine Holloway's blood with towels, wiping away the blood splatter, sorting through the blood-stained clothes and toys that he was bagging and staging on the front deck, picking up pieces of her skull and disposing of them in the kitchen sink garbage disposal, disrobing her body, dragging it to a bathtub, stopping to take a nap. While members of the Holloway family and the Ansonia Police Department frantically searched for Christine. And then, ultimately, calmly leaving the scene.
Jose Morales went to trial for the murder of Christine, but has not been charged in connection with his daughter's disappearance, though members of the family believe that he is ultimately responsible. But trust me, the investigation into Vanessa's disappearance is ongoing. The cops have not given up. In fact, prosecutors say police will be reviewing transcripts from the trial, looking for clues. Any little nugget could break this case wide open. But back to the sentencing of Morales for Christine's murder. The state argues the unresolved question of what happened to the couple's daughter should be considered as an aggravating factor.
Now, I am well aware that this trial is not about Vanessa Morales, nor has the defendant been convicted of any crime as to Vanessa Morales. But as this court found when ruling on pretrial motions, the police investigation pertaining to her disappearance was exceedingly intertwined into the police investigation and into the nature and circumstances of Christine Holloway's death. and I believe it is something that the court may consider in its broad discretion when fashioning a sentence within the statutory limits for which the defendant has been convicted.
Well, I'm going to object. This is exactly what the court just ruled on. Exactly.
Attorney Gavin, I appreciate your objection and the limitation on the record when the court enters its decision as to whether or not the court.
Thank you.
By all direct and circumstantial evidence presented in this case, together with the reasonable inferences that may be developed from the evidence, 14-month-old Vanessa Morales was last seen in the presence of the defendant and her mother in the early morning hours of December 2nd, 2019.
Your Honor, this is so far afield from what the court just ordered here. This is attempting to influence this court inappropriately in regard to a matter that is not before the court. And you've instructed the state not to do that, as well as the other witnesses.
Attorney Stein, I'm going to bring you back to the court's instructions relative to the interplay. That was with respect to the investigation. I will just note for the record that the court is here to sentence the defendant on the charge of murder and the charge of tampering with evidence. This court will not be taking into consideration the fact that missing child Vanessa is in any way, shape, or form related to any conduct with respect to the defendant. The defendant is not charged relative to Vanessa Morales, and the state's charges and the jury's verdict are not based on any relation to Vanessa Morales.
I want to tell you about OneSkin. They are sponsoring today's episode of Crime Fix. Let's be honest, being on camera as much as I am, having the right skincare products matters a lot. Our skin changes as we get older. Dryness, deeper wrinkles, even crepiness can be frustrating, but there's a game changer out there, and it's called OneSkin. OneSkin was founded by an all-woman team of scientists who developed the proprietary OS-01 peptide. This peptide targets cellular senescence, a key hallmark of aging. It's scientifically proven to decrease lines and wrinkles, boost hydration, and help with thinning skin. They have over 4,000 five-star reviews for their full line of face, body, sun, and travel-size products. One of the things I like most about OneSkin is how easy it is to integrate it into my daily routine. Just a few simple steps and I'm good to go. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin and get 15% off using the code CRIMEFIX when you check out at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with the code CRIMEFIX. And remember to tell them we sent you when they ask you where you heard about them. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you. Trust me. But Judge Murphy reminds the parties that the sentencing decision does not take into account Vanessa and her disappearance. Then she acknowledges the pain endured by the Holloway family, giving them the floor for victim impact statements. The first family member to speak was Christine's aunt, Anna Rodonsky.
Beautiful, brilliant, kind, caring, spiritual niece was brutally murdered on 12/2/2019. How does one even begin to start to tell how this has affected my life as well as our family and friends? I would like to start with some background about Chrissy. She was the first person in our family, in her family, to obtain a bachelor's degree. She and I shared a bond with our faith. I chose Christina as my confirmation name because I loved her so much. She loved children, she loved her job, and taking care of so many adorable children at the daycare where she was employed. She was passionate and full of love. I moved to Nashville in October 2019 for a new job, and Chrissy and I would FaceTime with Vanessa during bath time or dinner. We supported each other's passions. She would open the freezer door while Vanessa was playing with her toys, and as soon as Vanessa heard the freezer door opening, she knew it was frozen mango time, and she would crawl as fast as she could, giggling all the way. I hope wherever she is now, she is still enjoying her frozen mangoes. On 12/2/2019, Chrissy was taken away from us, and Vanessa has yet to be found.
Anna vividly details just how difficult the grieving process was at the time of Christine's death and still is today. The grief will never end.
When we arrived at the cemetery, we were welcomed by the staff with opening and carrying arms. We had to ask them if there is a way they could dig the hole for Chrissy a little bit deeper in case Vanessa had to join her. Let me repeat that. We had to ask if they could dig the hole a little deeper in case Vanessa would be joining her. Nobody should ever have to think about asking that question. Nobody. How does one go on? I recall packing my suitcase to come home after Chrissy was murdered. I packed warm winter clothes and boots because I thought I would be looking for Vanessa in the cold woods. I packed clothes for a wake and funeral for my 43-year-old niece. It all seemed surreal. I walked through the airport looking for Vanessa. Stephen and I took on the task of cleaning Chrissy's apartment once released from the police and detectives. I will never forget when we opened the door and broke down crying in each other's arms. Once again, we had to carry on. As we were cleaning the apartment, we would go to the kitchen sink and wash our hands. I noticed water coming out from under the sink. A piece of the pipe was missing and there was no bucket anywhere. I thought this was weird. I thought to myself that perhaps the police took it to see if there was any evidence on it from someone else washing their hands. It was not until the trial that I learned that the pipe was removed with the garbage disposal and my brilliant niece's skull pieces were located. Well, most of the pieces anyway. I have PTSD from the sound of garbage disposals now, and I jump out of my skin. I can't wash a pot after having beets for dinner because the beet juice in the sink reminds me of blood. Stephen and I cleaned and packed up the apartment, taking multiple breaks as we had to hold each other up from sadness, shock, and exhaustion. I thought the missing carpet cutout from the investigation was the only part of Chrissy's nightmare. I was advised by my family and friends not to read anything online because of the graphic nature of the situation. I cleaned the bathroom with Stephen, only to find out during the trial for the first time that Chrissy's body was found in the bathroom and the carpet cutout was just the beginning of her torture.
Next, Chrissy's brother, Stephen Holloway, addresses the court with a note written by their mother, Deborah.
Christine was my oldest child. She was born 10 weeks early, weighing only 3 pounds and 6 ounces. She spent 5 weeks in the NICU, and then I brought her home. As she grew older, she was a role model for her brothers and sisters. She had honors all through school. She was the first in our family to graduate from college. She loved caring for children. She became a teacher in a daycare. Christine loved working with children and always wanted one of her own. When she had Vanessa, I could tell it was the happiest day in her life. It was great to see her so happy. When Christine was ready to go back to work, she took Vanessa with her to daycare center. They were always together and happy. My last happy time I remember was November 28th, 2019. It was the last time we were all together as a family. Then it happened. It was December 2nd, 2019. My life changed completely. I couldn't believe my daughter was dead and my granddaughter was missing. I had to stop going to work and just try to go on to accept what happened. I had many sleepless nights, nightmares, weight gain, anxiety, stressful days, and depression. Some of these I still have today.
Then Stephen's fiancée, Jody Jacobellis, boldly addressed Morales directly.
Once Chrissy started dating Mr. Morales, we all noticed everything had to be about him, and she stopped going to church because he wanted time spent with him. For the last 5.5 years, my family and I have come to every single court date, and every court date we have witnessed the defendant come out, smile with his face, and say hi to his family members in the gallery. Every time this would happen, it caused more heartache, pain, and anger because we don't have the opportunity anymore to smile, hug, or even talk to Chrissy or Vanessa. On December 2nd, 2019, our whole family's lives changed forever. The panic and fear driving all around over Ansonia, New Haven, trying to find a loved one. Calling all the area hospitals describing your loved one and her daughter because God forbid she was in a car accident and no one knew who they were. When my fiance and I learned the fate of my sister-in-law, we had to go to my mother-in-law and break the news to her. That her oldest daughter was murdered and her 1-year-old daughter was nowhere to be found. No one can imagine our pain and suffering for over the past 5.5 years unless you have lived it yourself. This is a wound we will all have to live with for the rest of our lives. My family and I have missed so many holidays, birthdays, and milestones with Chrissy and Vanessa. No one can give us that time back with them. Now my family and I get to celebrate those holidays and birthdays at Chrissy's gravesite. Every day I think about picking up the phone and calling Chrissy. But then I remember I can't, because she will never pick up her cell phone again. I miss having conversations with my sister-in-law, talking about everything and anything. Every day I have to think to myself how another human being can take another person's life. And then I realize he's not a human being. He's nothing but a monster. A monster that must live for the rest of his life knowing what he did and caused a family. There has been no remorse or empathy coming from this monster. Yet my family and I must have to relive the nightmare every minute of the day when we go out and see a child who may look like Vanessa. All this monster does is think about himself. He is nothing but a selfish, self-centered, narcissistic piece of trash that should live with his life in the 8x8 cell. Deep down in my soul, I know this monster knows exactly where Vanessa is, and he knows exactly what he did to my sister-in-law.
During the trial, Morales testified in his own defense that he smoked PCP and that 2 intruders broke into the home. His third-party culprit defense included 2 perpetrators, one attacking Christine with a crowbar and the other taking Vanessa.
I want you to go very, very slow for me now, okay?
Okay.
Tell us what happened next, what your observations were, what happened next.
So I called 911. I don't know how much time went by. Seconds. I felt hit. I got hit on the right side of my face. I lost my balance. I already had no balance to begin with. I lost my balance. I fell. I tried to lean on the little kitchen island. I couldn't get to it because I was not that close to it. So I fell. I got on my floor, on my knees and my hands, and I got hit right around my chest area. I stood there, laid out on the floor, high, extremely in a daze from I had just finished smoking a blunt. So at the same time I'm listening, but I'm on the floor and I can hear that there's a struggle going on in the bed area. There's a fight. I hear screams. At the same time, I hear that somebody leaves the apartment. I see that somehow Christine got away from whoever it is that she was fighting with and tried to run out the apartment to go after the guy that left the apartment with Vanessa.
Prosecutors proved that story was a lie, providing the jury with evidence that led them to the truth. Morales was an abusive, controlling boyfriend who bludgeoned the mother of his child to death and then spent 36 hours meticulously cleaning the crime scene. Morales' attorney, Ed Gavin, references a proposed deal that came up before the trial that never came to fruition, hoping that it might sway the judge.
So the issue is, at this point, is what is an appropriate sentence for Mr. Morales at 48 years of age. And that's a difficult call for the court. I do want to just make a suggestion to the court, because you were not involved in any of this. We had extensive negotiations to avoid a trial in this case. Mr. Morales offered to plead guilty to murder and accept a sentence of 35 years to avoid the heartache that this family has gone through today. And for a variety of reasons, none of which were related to Your Honor, that didn't come to fruition. But he did accept responsibility and agreed to plead to the charges. So, Your Honor, at 48 years of age, I would suggest to the court that a sentence of 35 years is appropriate. I think we can all do the math here, and I think that given the agreed upon number of 35 years that was not put into fruition, that would essentially be a life sentence for us. We would anticipate that there would be any release, certainly on the murder charge, where you would serve day for day.
Morales wrote a statement for the court, but his counsel advised him not to read it. So Judge Murphy gives him one last chance before she formally sentences him for his crimes.
Mr. Morales, I'd like to address you for a moment based on the comments made by your counsel. Sir, you do have a right to be heard, a right to allocution here at the sentencing proceeding, although you do not have to present comments to the court. Is it your decision to not present a statement to the court?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Mr. Morales, you are a dangerous person, a significant threat to society, and you need to be removed from the community for a substantial period of time. The victim's family, as well as the members of society, expect the guilty to be held accountable for their actions and rely on the criminal justice system for some measure of closure. No sentence or comments by the court will lessen the profound sense of loss caused by your actions. But you, Mr. Morales, will be held accountable and sentenced accordingly. Mr. Morales, please rise.
Please stand up.
Upon the court's considerations as outlined on the record, the following sentence is hereby imposed. As to the finding of guilty of the crime of murder of Christine Holloway, it is the sentence of the court that you be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a definite period of 60 years to serve, which in accordance with our statutes is defined as life. As to the finding of the crime of tampering with physical evidence, it is the sentence of the court that you be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a definite period of 5 years to serve, to run consecutive to the sentence on the murder for a total effective sentence of 65 years to serve.
Morales will most likely spend the rest of his life in prison, opening up the path for the family to begin the healing process. Following the hearing, the family thanked police and court officials.
It takes so much time to write these letters to in court that we are just happy today, and we're grateful for everybody for their support. We're grateful that he can't hurt anybody anymore. This is Vanessa's bib, and we'll continue to look for her. And I don't really know what else to say except thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
On behalf of the Holloway family, we want to say thank you to the state, the Ansonia PD, the FBI, the city of Ansonia, the city of Shelton, Bridgeport Board of Ed, and everybody else in the community that still prayed for our family and that continues to look for Vanessa. Justice was served today in honor of Chrissy. Now the next big step that we have to face is finding Vanessa and bringing her home. Thank you, everybody.
About 20 members of Chrissy Holloway's family attended the sentencing, all wearing T-shirts with her photo on the front and Vanessa's photo on the back, all of which vow to never give up the search for Vanessa, who would now be 6 years old. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed photo of her, offering a $10,000 reward for information that leads to Vanessa's location. Assistant State Attorney Howard Stein hopes to get answers for the Holloway family soon.
It is my hope that the family of Christine Holloway has a small semblance of justice with this sentence today. However, I know they are still suffering because Vanessa Morales remains missing. I will not comment any further about Vanessa at this time, as her disappearance, as intertwined as it is into the murder of Christine Holloway, is still the subject of an active investigation by the Ansonia Police Department, and it's my understanding they will be issuing a press release to you folks with regard to that. So thank you all again for the time that we spent during this trial. I appreciate it.
The Ansonia Police Department is determined to figure out what happened to Vanessa. The Detectives Bureau has begun to review those trial transcripts that I mentioned earlier for any new information. And anyone with information involved in the disappearance of Vanessa Morales is encouraged to contact the Ansonia Police Department. Jose Morales is appealing his conviction, but right now, he's headed off to prison. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.